Hi everybody, and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Friday, October 13th, 2017. This is episode 34. Friday the 13th. I guess if I was superstitious that would mean something, but really it's just another day. I did get my driver's license on Friday the 13th many years ago, and that all worked out fine, so who's to say? My name is Carol, and I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog, or you can also find them in the episode thread in the A Stitch in Time Podcast Ravelry group. Come by, join in the chatter, show me what you're making, or join in the Agatha Christie Along, which is a knit along, crochet along I'm hosting in conjunction with reading my way through my Agatha Christie collection. You can enter as many times as you like. It's going to run from when I'll draw names from the beginning right to the end of the knit along, and so you can win as many times as entries you have. I actually drew just before recording for October's winner, and that is Little Mouse, or Jane. She lives in England, and her entry was her apple blossom socks. So congratulations, Jane. Please contact me via Ravelry, and I will arrange to gift you a pattern that is giftable on Ravelry for up to a value of $10 US. So I look forward to hearing from you, and congratulations. Jane has been a frequent contributor or participant in the Agatha Christie Along, so I'm happy to see her win. Today's episode, I'm just back from holidays. Was gone for almost 2 weeks, and I hardly knit a stitch while I was gone, so you'd think I wouldn't have much knitting, but I've been kind of making up for it since I got home. So I do have one finished project to show you and a number of works of progress. Talk a little bit about what's up and coming, and then I'll tell you all about what's been going on with me in the last few weeks since I last recorded. So sit back with a hot or cold beverage and get ready. Here we go. So my first thing I'm going to talk about, if you are observant, you'll notice I have finished my Calliopesis cowl. This is a pattern by Bonnie Sennett. She's also known as Blue Peninsula. Blue Peninsula Designs, I think. And I'll take this off and show you. I actually finished the knitting of this before I went away and blocked it. And then the pattern instructed you to do a provisional cast on and then not bind off at the end, and then join the cowl with, or to the two ends of the cowl with a 3-needle bind off. But I actually chose to graft it or do Kitchener stitch. So I did that this morning, and I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I'm just going to see if I can even find, I think this is the part I grafted, but I think it's very difficult to actually see that that's what happened there, which is the whole point of doing it. So I was very happy. So as you can see, this is a long infinity cowl, and it alternates sections of this red mesh lace with sections of this gray. Don't know how well that's going to show up. Let's see if I can find something light to put behind it. That might work better. Let's see. Oh, my pattern's all printed on both sides. Oh, sorry, it's just going to have to do. There, that might show you better. There, anyway. And then you do these transition areas of garter stitch in between them. I actually knit this to wear primarily for curling. When the weather gets cooler, it gets even colder out on the ice, and so I like to have something around my neck. So I'm enjoying wearing it today. I've been kind of chilly since I got home. I think the dampness and the fall weather has definitely set in, so I'm welcoming a little something around my neck. I know I was wearing like a little shawl scarf thing yesterday all day just because I was a bit chilly, but it's not cold enough for a sweater. I put a sweater or sweatshirt on and I get too warm. So these are great. Something like this is great for that in between, I find, in the house. So anyway, I guess I should tell you about the yarns. The gray is Valley Yarn Charlemont Kettle Dye in Dusk, and that's a wool silk blend. And then the red is 100% merino fingering from Beyond Basic Knits, and this was the candy apple colorway. So kind of fitting for upcoming Halloween. I'm just going to take a sip of tea. This is actually jasmine tea from David's Tea, and it's really nice. It just smells so nice. It has a nice flavor too. You can probably hear my voice is a little bit hoarse. Partway through our holiday, I kind of lost my voice partly, and I think it's a combination of the air conditioning and talking a lot more than I normally do. And it's still not quite back, 100% back to normal. I have this much red left, so I am thinking about making maybe a hat, because I'll wear this with my winter jacket too. So I might make a hat, or I might just hold on to it for something else, but that's sort of what I've been thinking about. And it is my very favorite shade of red. I know on the video it shows up a little brighter than it is in real life, but it's sort of a true red, cherry red, and I love it. So yeah, very pleased with how this came out. I would consider making another one, or at least another one of this length, because this is just perfect. It doubles up really nicely around your neck, but doesn't choke you. Okay, so I think the last podcast before I left, I had showed you this yarn I had purchased from our new yarn shop in town. Beautiful colors. It's Black Cat custom yarn. Everyday sock. And it's in the Sedona colorway. So I did cast on a pair of plain socks before we left, and I thought I might work on them in the plain, which I didn't actually on the way there. You know, I have flown a number of times, and I've always taken metal needles and never had an issue with my knitting needles. And for some reason this time I thought, oh, maybe I better not take metal needles on the plane. So I packed my sock, and so I didn't actually, I'll talk about another project I took with me. I didn't actually end up working on it, but I thought that was kind of crazy. So on the way home, I just took a chance, and I put this in my carry-on, and actually it was no problem, and I did knit on the way home. So I did get some of this sock done. So there you go. It's just a very basic 64 stitch plain vanilla sock, done on 2mm needles. That's sort of my standard go-to sock. As you can see, I'm getting very close to doing the toe. So I actually got to maybe about here on the plain, and so since I've been home, I've done the heel and worked my way down the foot when I was watching some TV, catching up on the last 2 episodes of Outlander. So I really I wondered how they would manage the split between what's happening in Jamie's life back in 18th century Scotland and how Claire's life evolved in the 40s and 50s and 60s in Boston, 1940s, 50s, 60s. And I thought they did a super job, and I think they did a really neat transition of taking her back to the past. I won't spoil it if you haven't seen the episode yet, but I thought they devised a really unique way of transporting her, if you will, or just doing that transition without having to go through this, show her going through the stones, etc. again. If you don't watch Outlander, this probably, or haven't read it, it's all gibberish to you, but I think it's a pretty popular book and show. So most of you probably know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I digress. So yes, there is my are my Sedona socks. The yarn is kind of pooling in a kind of an interesting way here with this almost a blue stripe in amongst all the multicolored, and it's on that side. So yeah, I quite like how it's knitting up. They're fun because the colors are so pretty, nice to play with. So anyway, that's a lot to say about a plain vanilla sock, but I'm a little out of practice. I feel definitely kind of rusty, so I'll probably end up just chitter-chattering way too much. So I had such ambitions. I took like 3 projects with me to the Dominican. And honestly, I knit a few stitches on that sock while I was actually there. And I mean a few, maybe a few rows, literally, maybe 2 or 3 rows of my sock, and didn't touch knitting again until the plane ride home. So one of the other projects I took with me was some yarn and a pattern needles to cast on my October project for the Grocery Girls Sock Bash. And I chose a Halloween fall theme. This is probably not going to show up very well. I decided on little pumpkin socks. And it's a pattern by, I did write it down here, Sabine Rupert. I hope that's how you say her last name. And I had this yarn, had it in my stash for a long, long time. It's this orange and green fingering weight yarn from Cherry Tree Hill, Super Sock Select. And it's called Melon of Troy, as you can see there. And this was a custom color years ago when I was part of the Sock Knitters Anonymous group in Ravelry, or on Ravelry. Cherry Tree Hill kind of put it out there that they were going to design some colorways. I think what was happening, the theme for the month was orange. One of the themes for the month was orange yarn, to knit with orange yarn. And so Cherry Tree Hill dyed a number of different colorways, and we had a chance to name them. And then if they chose your name, then you won the skein of yarn. So they didn't choose mine, but I did order several skeins of it anyways. So yeah, there's the Sock Knitters Anonymous custom color thing. So yeah, it seemed like a good time to use it, being Halloween and all. And so I did begin my first little pumpkin sock when I got home. And what you might not be able to tell from the pattern is that, or from the pattern page, because the photo's not that great, is the sock involves 4 vertical columns of pumpkin motifs that run around the sock. So I did begin the sock as written, and then I found with the variegated yarn and the pattern, it was just really busy. And so I decided to modify the pattern, and I just took the pumpkin stitch motif from it, and I decided just to do 1 column of pumpkins down each sock. And so this will be my right foot, and so this will run down the right side of my foot and leg. And then I also cast on the second one, and that'll be the left foot. So I'll come in closer so you can see the motif. It's actually really neat. One looks like a pumpkin that's sort of been cut open with the seeds, and the other you can see the vertical lines of a full or a whole pumpkin, an uncut pumpkin. So I love how it's knitting up on this one. I like how the colors are distributing themselves. It almost looks kind of stripy. And no matter how hard I tried, this one just, even though I started them exactly the same place in the yarn, I can't get it to do the same thing. It's more pooling, and it's got kind of this, the colors are kind of running in spirals around the sock. I am not going to try and solve it again. I really did start over about 3 or 4 times just to, because that's, you know, if you've watched for any amount of time, you know that's my personality, kind of perfectionist. But there we go. Whoops. So there you go. So that's the October socks. So I started really late. I only started them yesterday, so I have to hustle up and knit these by the end of the month. I've come this far and knit one for every month so far, so I really, really want to continue. So I'll get these done, and then November, December, and I'll have done all 12 months. So there you go. All right, so I'm just going to take another sip of tea here. So we're getting into sweater weather, of course, with being fall. And I had previously shown you I had the Chimera knit along, sweater knit along. Chimera by Carol Feller. That started October 7th. So when I got home, I had the first clue. And I was worried because we got home the 8th, and I didn't really get started on this till a couple of days ago. But luckily, the clue was very brief. Oops. This is it. This is clue 1. More or less sort of just like a gauge swatch. So if I was going to be late for any clue, this was the one for sure. So this is actually the back panel of the cardigan. So if this was my back, this will sit here and it will go down there. And then the next clue will have us casting on the front stitches, and you knit sideways, and they eventually wrap around and join up with this back panel. And then you pick up along the bottom and knit down. And so yeah, that's a very, very easy. Took me, a few hours just to whip that up. So I'm glad it's on its way. I think we get our next clue on the 17th, I guess, 1 week. And then I believe there are two weeks between then and the next clue coming out, because there's a lot more knitting to do. So that's good. Should be quite manageable. And this yarn is from Blue Moon Fiber Arts. It's cake worsted. And this is the, say there, Bittersweet colorway. So I really like working with this yarn. And as I've mentioned, I was not too sure about the color to start with, but it's definitely grown on me, and I think it'll be really lovely. So, well on its way. And then because, I don't know, I was going to say because I'm an eternal optimist, or maybe I'm just foolish. So I had this bright idea that I was going to cast on a sweater and work on it on the plane on the way there. Pardon me. Because I thought it would be more interesting than just working on a plain sock. Which it probably would have been, except that as it was, we had a very short night and an early flight, and I really wasn't in the mood to knit at all on the way there. And so I didn't get any of this done. But that's okay. At least I started it before I left, and then it was easy to pick it up when I got home. So the sweater, another Carol Feller design called Dusty Road. And I'll show you this picture here too. There we go. So it's just a very, not like a kind of a high neck, not quite a boat neck, just a high crew neck, plain body with a lace panel that runs along each side seam or side area, and with lace sleeves, and it's like a 3/4 length sleeve. So, and it's done in a sport weight yarn, and I had this beautiful, oh yeah, that's picking up all these beautiful tones in it. This is Malabrigo Arroyo in the Purpuris colorway. I don't speak Spanish, although I got really good at saying hola and gracias this past week. So that's the color, and yeah, I had 4 skeins of this in my stash. So I'll show you. I actually have worked on it a fair bit since I got home. So let's see, this is the front. So, oh, I'm glad the light's catching up all the beautiful tones in it. I am alternating skeins because each skein, they were a little bit different. So as you can see, it's just a kind of a round neck. And I'll bring up the lace pattern just to show you a little bit closer. There you go. It's actually quite simple. It's a 8-row repeat. 4 of those rows are plain, and the other 4 are just you do this little motif, and then the next set of 4 rows you offset it. So it actually is very simple to kind of memorize and keep up with. And there you can see under the arms. Whoops. Not doing a very good job, sorry. There you go. Under the arms you have this lace panel. If you can see that against. It's one thing with the smaller screen on this camera. I can't always tell exactly what you see. But hopefully that showed up. So yeah, I've been going along. So now I'm on the body. I did all the raglan shaping and separated the sleeves out. And then I'm working on the body. I've done just over 2 inches. I've just begun the waist decreases. So most of this is stockinette, other than those, there's 13 stitches on each side panel in lace. So it's a good one. I can work on this quite easily now, you know, talking to people or doing other things. So that's nice. But yeah, I'm glad it's showing up so well. At least it is on the camera, because it really is beautiful yarn. It's probably, I'm going to guess, make show up a little bit brighter on camera than it is in real life. It is a fairly dark purple, but it's got the right tones that at least I see in the camera. So yes, that's all the actual knitting I'm doing. Another thing that was waiting for me when I got home was the 6th and final shawl pattern for the Shawl Society 2 collection by Helen Stewart. And this one is called the Familiar Shawl. And I'll actually show you that when I printed it up, that didn't really show off the texture in the shawl, but the flip side did a much better job. So you can see it has these cables on it. And the Familiar is kind of a companion to a, what did she say, a wise woman or a magician. And so, which often takes the form of an animal. And so Helen based this design on Hedwig, Harry Potter's owl. And so the original one was done in looks like a white or a cream or a light gray. I wasn't sure. I kind of held off getting yarn for this because I wasn't sure if I would want to knit another bulky weight shawl. Because it's not I wouldn't wear it necessarily as a scarf, which is how I wear most of my shawls. But this is big enough it actually would be quite cozy just to wrap up in an evening, or a cool day. So I do plan to knit this. I'm still giving thought to yarn. I may decide just to knit it with some worsted weight that I maybe have in my stash, or I may buy some yarn. I'm tempted to buy some yarn, but then I'm always tempted to buy some yarn. So we'll see. Who knows, maybe next time we meet I will be working on this. I'm not sure. I have no delusions. Is that the right word? I know I'm not going to finish this by the deadline for the prizes, so I'm not even trying. So this one will get knit kind of when I can fit it into what I already have going on. So after a bit of a hiatus, I got back to reading Agatha Christie, and I think I was reading this before I left, the ABC Murders. And this turned out to be a really interesting book, told from a different perspective than her books usually are. And it was interesting to see the investigation unfold, and you got to walk in the suspect's shoes for a bit. Some of the story was told from his perspective. So very interesting. I have to say, I thought the ending was kind of far-fetched, but then that's kind of how Agatha Christie works. Definitely a bit of a surprise, so I would recommend it. Well, I recommend all her books, whether I think they're far-fetched or not. They're definitely entertaining, and this one I really, really wanted to read and see how it turned out. So it did not disappoint in that sense. It kept me reading. And so I finished this, I think it was just the day before we left the Dominican. So then I had a new book to read on the plane ride home, and that was Murder in Mesopotamia. This ABC Murders, I don't remember reading before. None of it seemed familiar to me, although I could swear I've read all of them. I have the collection, and I thought I had read every one. This one I did not remember at all. This one I know I've read more than once, so it's quite familiar to me, although I really don't remember who done it, but the story is familiar. And this takes place in Iraq, I think it is, and it takes place in a compound that is housing members of an archaeological dig, and one of the, I think it's the man leading the expedition, hires a nurse to come and be with his wife. She believes she's in danger, and no one's really taking it seriously. She thinks that maybe there's mentally, emotionally something going on, so he hires a nurse for her, and then his wife ends up murdered. And so Hercule Poirot happens to be in the vicinity, and so he has come to help solve the mystery. So where I am in the book, he's just arrived and they've started sorting through the facts in the case. So enjoying that one. So yeah, so my life, it's been kind of a whirlwind for the last couple of weeks. Pardon me, as I mentioned, we were in the Dominican Republic. It was a trip. It was like a working holiday. Went with my husband as part of his job. His company is an automotive parts company. It's just in BC, but it's large, family-owned company. And they began an incentive program for their customers, I think it was in 1993. And customers can earn, through their purchases, earn points or money, I guess, towards a trip that the company hosts. And it's gotten bigger and bigger over the years. There were 1,100 people on this one. And usually in the past, it's always been a cruise. And this time it was an all-inclusive stay at a resort in the Dominican Republic. And so some of the staff go along to act as hosts. And our role is to socialize and to host a table of customers for dinner every night. So it's not a tough job. It can be exhausting, honestly. Sometimes, it means you're on all the time. But it's a really fun trip. And over the years, this is the 10th trip that my husband and I have been on. And so we've gotten to know a lot of people over the years, both other staff, suppliers, and customers. And what's neat is now we're starting to see some of the next generation taking over their parents' shops. And so we're getting to know them now too. So every year there are always new people to meet, and definitely enjoyed our time very much this time. It was met some really nice people and had a great time. So I was a little worried because I'm used to the cruises, and we're not lie in the sun all day people. I thought it might be a bit boring, but it turns out there were excursions that you could do from the resort, and so we did take advantage of that. Our first one, we went zip lining, which I'm not a huge heights person. I'm not a huge thrill seeker, so but I knew my husband would enjoy it, and I thought, go out of your comfort zone. And so I did. There were 12 zip lines in all. The longest was about 800 meters, and you go up way high over the river. It was fine. I was saying I don't know if I would ever go again. I don't feel this need to go again. At the same time, I'm glad I did it and sort of accomplished something. went out of my comfort zone and challenged myself. I'll insert a picture here. So there, that's proof I actually did it. That was on the second run. So they start out short and not too high and build you up to the longer, higher zip lines. And I think the biggest fear I had was the idea of having to step off the platform into nothing. And I wasn't nervous about the equipment holding me or any of that, or nervous about speed or anything. I just think, for me, I thought the hardest part was going to have to be taking that leap of faith. But as it turned out, you kind of get all set up to go, and then they let you go. So you don't have to make that decision of stepping off. They make that for you. So they kind of get you all buckled in and stuff, and you're set with your hand back here and your hand here. Like this one holds a zip line, this one holds your harness, and you have to have your head that way, away from the line, and then your legs are kind of tucked up into your chest, and then they just let you go, and you just, zip along the line. So that was helpful, because I don't know if I could have just let myself go. That's where I would have really struggled. So yeah, anyway, glad I did it. It was fun. Don't necessarily need to do it again. A couple days later, we did a cave tour. That was very interesting. We went to a place called Skate Park, and you had to climb up the side of a hill, fairly steep hillside, and so originally the bottom stairs were all carved into the side of the hill, and then there were a series of wooden staircases leading up to the top, and then there was a beautiful view from the top that looks over this whole skate park area. I'll put a picture of that here. And then you walked through the jungle a little ways till you got to the cave and descended into it again by wooden staircase. And there were bats that inhabited the cave, so we would see the occasional one fly around, fly in or out. And then there was one particular chamber it was kind of tight getting in, and you didn't have to if you didn't want to to go in. And then there were bats clustered on the ceiling. So I'll maybe put a couple pictures here just so you can get a sense of that. And then there were, if you don't like spiders, which I don't, but for some reason it didn't bother me, there were these large, and I mean like probably 4 inches across, combination. They explained a combination between a spider and a scorpion, and they're blind, and they live in this cave, and they, I guess vibration is how they sense their prey. So they eat spiders and cave crickets. So we saw a few of those. If you don't want to look away. I'll put a picture here. So that was a really fun tour. Enjoyed that very much. Very, very hot and humid. Oh, we were just dripping with perspiration. It was hot and humid most of the time we were there. I think that's part of the problem. We were in and out of that. I would go into the air-conditioned room, and it was great. You'd come out, it was hot and humid. I think that's partly what's with my throat, is just the change between the inside and the outside was so extreme. The company had organized, one day you could either do a tour of Santo Domingo, which is the Santa Domingo, I think. That's the capital of the Dominican. Or you could go to a Soma Island, it was called, and it was a beautiful beach. So you actually took we bussed to the pier, and then is that the right word? Dock, I guess. Harbor, I don't know, doesn't matter. We had to bus to the boat, and you either took a catamaran or a speedboat there, and then you did the opposite on your way back. So we took a catamaran there, So it was kind of a party boat, music and dancing. They had tried to get people up dancing, showing us, dancing with them. So yeah, I ended up having to do that. My husband did too. I took video, but I think it's like sideways. So, and I probably shouldn't embarrass him like that, but so did that, and then got to the beach and had a lovely few hours there. Lunch was provided and drinks and such. So we spent most of that time in the water. And then on the way back, we took the speedboat. And then because it's faster than the catamaran, they want everyone to arrive back about the same time. So we actually stopped in kind of a really shallow lagoon for about half an hour or so and hung out in the water there. And they had starfish. It was really neat. They were about this big. I didn't have my camera because it was on the boat, but probably about this big around and hard, like a really hard shell. I was expecting it more pliable, but it wasn't. Anyway, that was really neat. Great day. And then we also did a snorkel cruise on our own, which was also, that was great. That was the second to last day and was so relaxing and fun. So we went out for a while and they took us out snorkeling for a good hour, and then came back and again, kind of party boat, music and drinks. And then lunch was brought on board and we anchored in a shallow lagoon with a whole bunch of other boats and had lunch, and then had some time in the water just to hang out before we headed back. So that was really fun. We also golfed one day. There was a golf course right sort of as part of our resort, and the company had arranged a tournament. So we did play golf. We didn't play golf well, but it was and it was very hot and humid. Before we even started, I was just soaked. But I figure, if you're going to be there where there's a golf course, you should try it at least once. They have three courses of 9 holes each, and one course wasn't open at all. It's had a lot of wind damage from the Hurricane Maria. So there's a lot of downed trees that they're still cleaning up and such. We saw they had done a very good job at the resort of cleaning up any damage that had occurred during the hurricane. But as we drove out, we could see, especially when we went up zip lining, because we went up quite a ways away from the resort up into the mountains, and you could see places where trees had come down and such. But things seem to be getting, back to normal. Certainly not as hard hit as somewhere like Puerto Rico, which obviously they're still dealing with that. It's terrible to watch TV and just see, it's almost, I think 3 weeks later, is it, that there's still so much to be done and will be for some time to come. One of the highlights of our trip was that the company had put on a concert and hired Bryan Adams to come play for us at the resort. So it was an exclusive concert in an auditorium with 1,100 people, and it was fabulous, as you might expect. I guess he had played the Invictus Games in Toronto the night before, got on a plane, flew down, and he finished the show and was on his way to the airport immediately, I guess. I'm not sure where he was going from there, but it was really fun. Did a lot of, chatting. I like that when artists will interact with the crowd and, talk and stuff. And then, sorry, a little bit itchy back here. Played, the music sounded great. And at the end, he actually did a cover of Another One Bites the Dust, and he invited a bunch of, women, not people. I was going to say people, but he actually specifically invited the women up. So a whole bunch of women got up and were dancing on stage with him. So that was the way he ended it. So it was really good. Very good. I will include a little montage or some concert footage at the end of the podcast if you're a Bryan Adams fan and are interested. We were probably about 4 or 5 people from the front, but off to the left of the stage. But at a couple of times, he came over to that end of the stage. So we literally were, maybe, I don't know, 20 feet away from him. So that was really cool. And then another highlight of the trip was the 1950s party. So they encouraged people to dress up for it, and had sort of a Grease theme, and had hired a really good band. They played music from like the 50s up till modern music. They were really good. I guess they came from California, and they played later on in the week at a beach party that we also had. But that was fun, seeing all the different costumes, and I won't put them up just because I try and keep this podcast. I try only to put pictures of like myself and family members who've sort of given me permission. I really try and keep it private that way. But trust me, there were some really great costumes. There were 4 people who dressed up like the beauty school dropouts, and 2 of them were large men. So it was hilarious with these silver costumes and silver rollers in their hair, and it was great. And then lots of different, typical what you think of as 50s costumes. So I'll put a picture here of Cameron and I. I had made a dress a few years ago for a 1950s birthday party, or themed birthday party. So I wore that, and then we had found this sort of 1950s style tux jacket thing in a costume place before we left. And so my husband parted his hair on the side, kind of slicked it down with the horn rim glasses. So I'll put a picture of us here. And then when we were at the party, on the various, they had some tables, little tables and mini couches set up away from the dance floor. And they had like pins and glasses and hats all kind of set around for people to put on if they like. So I picked up these, I had ordered a pair of like cat's eye glasses before I left, and they never came. So I picked up this pair of glasses. So I put those on. And then my husband had a hat. So I'll put a picture here of us like with our extra accessories. So there you go. So that was really fun. While you're there, you feel like you're in a little bit of a bubble because there's not, we didn't even have the TV on, and we just sort of got news from various people. So, of course, we heard about the shooting in Las Vegas, and actually that night we were having dinner with some customers, and one of them's cousin was in Las Vegas and had been shot in the shoulder, which is how they learned of it. So that hit, unexpectedly quite close to home. And then heard about Tom Petty dying. That was really sad. He's such an, iconic musician from our growing up. And then, of course, those wildfires in California, which are just devastating. And having been through all that this year in British Columbia, but with less drastic damage to homes and no deaths, it's really sad to hear of people who have actually died from it, and then how many are missing. And I'm sure a lot of them have just try to think of the past tense of fleed. A lot of them have left rapidly, and I'm hoping that they just need to get in touch and account for where they are. But I know they're fearing more that are probably, they're expecting the death toll to rise. So that's really sad. So Mother Nature this year has just she's been in a really, really bad mood. It's very just such a all the different natural disasters, between the hurricanes and the earthquakes in in Mexico, and then these wildfires this year. Just, it's been such a crazy year. On a lighter note, what the company has a tradition of doing is at the one of our get-togethers, one of our parties on the current trip, they will announce the next trip, which comes up in 2 years. And so it's very exciting that in 2 years they are actually going to go back to doing a cruise, and they have booked a small ship for the whole group and have set up their own itinerary. And so we're having a cruise that begins in Athens and has stops in Greece and Croatia, Montenegro, and then ends in Venice and fly home from there. So that is, I've been to Athens, haven't been to any of the other stops, and I've really want to go to Venice. So that was very exciting to hear, and everyone seemed very enthused about it. So I think it will be, again, really well attended, and yeah, it's just going to be fabulous. So yeah, what else was going on while we were gone? I had told you that our daughter and her husband had moved into my son-in-law's mother's place, and were going to put their townhouse up for sale. And apparently they had someone immediately interested, and within 8 hours all the initial paperwork was signed. So and then all the subjects came off on Monday, and so it's official. I think they still have to move some of their furniture and stuff out of there now, because they had left some things there to have it staged for selling. So they still have some moving of the furniture to do, but they're settling into their new place really well. We actually had dinner there on Monday. We came home Sunday night, so they invited us for dinner Monday. It was actually our Canadian Thanksgiving on Monday, and we hadn't really planned. We celebrated it as a family before we left, but we were invited for dinner, and we thought, why not? We wanted to see the kids anyway, and just meant not cooking. It was kind of an easy way to go. So we did go and have a nice dinner with them, and good to see the kids and all that. Yeah, just settling back into home life. We normally by now will have started playing volleyball with a group of friends every week, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. The school has changed, or the school board has changed their policies for renting out their schools, etc. And while it used to be part of a community program that cost us $1 a week to go drop in, now we would have to rent the school, pay insurance costs, and it's just kind of making it prohibitive, because we've done it on such a casual basis. It's hard to get enough people to actually commit financially, and it just means it's just more complicated. So it doesn't look like that's going to happen this year, unfortunately, because that was a lot of fun and a good way to get some exercise and see some of our friends year round, the ones we play ball with, because a lot of them that we play ball with also would do volleyball. Curling, I didn't have curling this last night, which was kind of welcome. So, but we resume that next week. So looking forward to that, getting back into the swing of things. Tomorrow night we are going to the Vancouver Canucks hockey game. We're hosting some customers there in they have a special restaurant where you sit down and have dinner, and then they have seats outside of the restaurant, like stadium seats, that they serve you different things all during the game and stuff. So it's kind of a high end way to see a hockey game. So that should be fun, and it's actually customers that we've known for quite a long time, and at the last minute had to cancel the trip to the Dominican, and so for medical reasons. So he's the owner's doing better now and is able to, he's back to work and able to attend. So we'll do that couple and then another, one of their mechanics and his wife. So who we haven't met, but should be fun. So it's, should just be a fun evening. Other than that, just trying to settle back into home life. Halloween's coming up. My daughter asked if I would help with some Halloween costumes for the girls. So our younger granddaughter is going to be Alice in Wonderland. So my daughter picked up a secondhand dress, so she asked me if I'd hem it and add some lace around the bottom and then make a little white pinafore to go over it. So I've got the fabric from her for that. I need to just kind of buckle down and do it. I found a tutorial online for doing a pinafore. So I just have to figure out the measurements to cut out the pieces, and then I don't think it should be that difficult. And then my older granddaughter is going to be Queen of Hearts, and they've got a costume, but she would, my daughter would like to have basically a tulle underskirt, a long underskirt to put under it just to make it look longer as a dress because it's just in below the knee length. So she thought it would look better as a long dress, and then also just gives a little more coverage because my granddaughter will wear like leggings or something underneath it, and then the tulle will kind of cover that up. So we need to purchase that. But that, again, that should be pretty straightforward. Just rectangle, put a casing over at the top and put elastic in it. So not like it's going to take a long time, but just a couple of, couple jobs that need to be done. So I think that's about it. My sister moves out here next week. They're currently on holidays, so they get back from holidays and the next day they move. So not exactly how they had planned things in the first place, but the move was kind of a fairly spontaneous decision, and everything moved pretty quickly once they made that decision. And so they already had their holidays all planned for a long time before that. So yeah, it'll be neat. I'm looking forward to her moving out here and seeing her more often. I guess that's it. So I expect I will talk to you in another week's time. Take care until then. Oh, before I go, I have over 200 YouTube subscribers. I don't know how that happened. It seemed to get a lot recently, so I'm not sure why the increase, but thank you if you have just begun watching. Welcome, and thanks for checking me out. And if you're coming back, thanks for coming back. I really do enjoy the interaction with people, so thank you for all your comments, kind comments, and feel free to ask questions. Feel free to friend me on Ravelry. I'm not a big, it's like Facebook. I don't really friend people. I initiate the friend, but I'm happy to friend people back. So by all means, if you want to do that, do so. So yeah, blabbering now. So I will just say thank you again for watching. Have a great week and happy knitting. And take care till next time. Bye.
All right. Now, I don't know if you like dancing or not, but this is kind of a dance song. I know there's been no alcohol tonight, so that's going to help. Not going to help, but maybe if you feel like you're in the mood for it, just even a little wiggle like this would do, To show how Canadians party is what I want to play. I want to see I got my
But it feels so right.